Hello and welcome. My name is Robert Kennard, and I am the chief writer and editor of the blog called the Lemonade Initiative. It's a blog that I started November, give or take. I started it really in March, and it's changed quite a bit since then. Anyway, I'm so sorry. I started it in March of 2020, and it's evolved over time. It started because I bought a lemon tree. My local grocery store provided one for purchase, and I just thought that was interesting. I don't live in a place where lemon trees thrive. Since then, I've learned that lemon trees aren't naturally occurring, which is an interesting little fact that I maybe will talk more about if I keep doing these videos. But anyway, I felt compelled by the idea of keeping a fruit tree, and the really unironically, a lemon tree was available, and so I grabbed it. And then as the pandemic started and different things started happening, and there were riots in the street, and then January 6th riots, and all of these other things, and I'm gonna just say right now, if you read into me or follow me socially, you'll figure out pretty quickly my political standing. But that's not what this is going to be about. Let me tell you a little more about what this will be about. As I started to see things that upset me, all sorts of things throughout the entire year, I started to feel myself get more and more anxious and worried about the future and worried about the quality of life and all sorts of things. Plenty of things to worry about. There always are. But then I considered my lemon tree, and I just remembered that phrase, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade, right? And I started to wonder about the origins of that phrase. And that led me to write a story about, a true story about a man called Marshall P. Wilder, a comedian from the early 1900s who was a little person and had a variety of medical conditions that made him always in pain and uncomfortable. And obviously he couldn't be a laborer or anything like that. So he had to make a living in a different way. And he learned as a young child that if he could make people laugh, then people would love him. And then he started to realize that making people laugh made people really actually happy. And that slowly turned into what his main motivation was with life. And sorry, I didn't... This is very improvisational, as you've probably figured out, and maybe I'll script future episodes. But again, this is just starting somewhere, and we'll see where it goes. And anyway, so Marshall, I didn't explain, was the man who inspired the phrase, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. One of his friends wrote his obituary when he died and initially said basically that same thing. I'm going to pull up the quote because I want to share it with you. And I'll edit out this, me searching the internet, Googling things. Gives you lemons, make lemonade. There we go. Okay, let's see if we can't find a clean cut here. So, Marshall Wilder was this comedian that lived an awesome life and made so many people happy. And his friend, Albert Hubbard, wrote his obituary when he died. And the obituary was titled "The King of Jesters." And while he says he was a walking refutation of that dogmatic statement, mens sana in corpore sano, his was a sound mind in an unsound body, and he proved the eternal paradox of things. He cashed in on his disabilities. he picked up the lemons that fate had sent him and started a lemonade stand. And so it's evolved over time to what Dale Carnegie refers to in his book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, as if you have a lemon, make lemonade. So I started this blog with a lemonade tree that evolved into a story about a 20th century comedian. And it just kind of ran from there. I didn't want to tell the stories that we've all heard a million times of the founding fathers or of Martin Luther King or Nelson Mandela, the big names of inspiring people who have tried to change the world in good ways. What really happened was that I wanted to show in my blog initially that common everyday people can take the lemonade the lemons. I'm messing up my own metaphor. Common everyday people can take the lemons that life gives so many of us and make lemonade. I told the story of a woman called the Mother Teresa of Baltimore in our first year, and how she was a homeless woman, a person experiencing homelessness. Sorry, I want to try to be sensitive and change my language to reflect that sensitivity, because I think a person's state of living doesn't dictate their state of being. And so, yeah, anyway. So she, B. Gaddy was her name, and she won the lottery in her town, and of course used some of that money to set herself up to be more comfortable and happy. But she had a terrible childhood and a terrible past, and with the help of a friend and the help of this incredible fortune that she managed to get, she set herself up to be happier and more successful. But also she used that lottery money to feed the people that were experiencing homelessness in her town. And I love stories like that. Or there was the parking fairies of Alaska who just were fed up with the insane bureaucracy of the parking enforcers of their town, who really just had no compassion or understanding and started to ticket people for things that were really, truly absurd. And they did just silent protests to try to make life in their little town just a little bit better and easier. And all of that was contained in the first year of the blog. We've, in the last couple of months, moved into the second year, and I can feel that the blog needs to change and evolve. And so that's part of why I'm starting this YouTube channel. I started it back when I started the blog, but never did anything with it. And yeah, I just wanted to find a way to help the blog grow so that the message of the blog could still be reached, or reach many people. I mean, again, totally improvising this, no script here. And I paid a couple of people to help me write a few blog posts as I was starting my sophomore year of college. I'm 32, and I just was, for a variety of reasons, a little late to the game, college-wise. And so, yeah, my life is a little bit hectic, and most by my own choosing and doing, especially since I'm trying full-time to maintain this blog and now this YouTube channel. So we'll see how successful I am in a regular update. But yeah, so I paid a few people to tell some stories of the more common people that I was avoiding at first, like Nelson Mandela, Marie Curie, Isaac Newton. And then I tried my hand at poetry and thought about including a few poems that I've written, but really only included one before I kind of went back to my old model and tried to standardize like a template for each blog post. But again, it just had a hard time like finding a rhythm. And so this is part of that year 2 experimentation and evolution of what I'm doing here with the Lemonade Initiative. I'm going to be transparent and say I'd love to make a little money from this, but mostly to just pay for the effort and to donate and to give back to needy people who just need as much help as they can get. So a little bit about me. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I was born and raised in this area in a little suburb just north of Salt Lake. And I enjoy writing, obviously. I write the blog. I have a beautiful wife named Cassie and 2 cats. And a friend of ours had a litter of puppies. Her dog had a litter of puppies. And so soon, in a few months, little Banjo's going to join our family. And that will be a fun time of learning how to train and help a puppy make it through the world. And I work for a local fast food chain that I'm not going to go out of my way to hide, but I'm going to try to avoid publicly saying because they're a pretty big chain. If it slips out, no big deal. But anyway, I'm the PM manager there. We call it a mentor because we try to make sure that leaders have a correct understanding that the key to good leading is teaching. And so each leadership position in our business has a teacher name, like a coach, a mentor, a trainer, that sort of thing. And that kind of occupies my whole life. I'm going to school at Utah Valley University for a business degree. And I've tried several times in the past, but I was never very successful. But now I've matured enough, I think, to really understand how important it is to stick with it and try and work through the things that you start and make sure that you're succeeding, even when you feel like giving up. So enough about me. I just want to take this first episode to just kind of introduce you to the website and the blog. And when I started the blog of the year 2 of the blog, I wrote what I'm about to read to you. So at the beginning of 2020, there were reports of a Let me start over. At the beginning of 2020, there were At the beginning of 2020, there were reports of a disease out of Wuhan, China, that began to reach my ears. It didn't really concern me. I had heard similar reports throughout my life. I was finding myself and preparing to sell my first home and starting the second year of work at a brand new restaurant in Riverton, Utah, which had opened in March of the previous year. I had left my religion, the faith of my fathers, before starting all of that. And it's been a private journey and difficult for me that I do not regret. However, it is one that I have no desire of discussing publicly. No shame to anybody who does. There are plenty of people out there who used to belong to the same religion that I used to belong to, who do speak out publicly about the reasons why they no longer belong to that religion, but that's something I prefer to keep private. I only bring it up here because the stress of leaving that religion contributed greatly to the coming forth of this blog and this project. It was something I worked hard to understand and cope with. I had 2 cats and an undiscovered anxiety problem, and I was starting college late and planning on starting my second semester with a 3.6 GPA, by the way. Life was busy. The pandemic of SARS-CoV-2, or COVID-19 as a lot of people call it, caught me and many other Americans off guard. And I will let the history books speculate about everything else. Excuse me, so sorry. the pandemic of SARS-CoV-2, oh my gosh. I had 2 cats and an undiscovered anxiety problem, and I was starting college late and planning on starting my second semester with a 3.6 GPA, by the way. Life was busy, and the pandemic of SARS-CoV-2, or COVID-19 as many people call it, caught me and many other Americans off guard. I will let the history books speculate about everything else, but it wasn't long before I began to take it seriously. Around the same time, many people in my home state of Utah did. Mid-March 2020. We were hearing about professional basketball players being quarantined and the season prematurely ending. We were hearing about the first cases coming from a cruise line. And then we were hearing about toilet paper being bought in bulk because of the 2-week quarantine. Of all the things being discussed about the pandemic, people were really worried they wouldn't be able to wipe their asses. Then, without warning, the restaurant I worked at had a million changes, or what felt like a million changes, all 1 week at a time. This led to the longest 2 months of my life. My mom had been diagnosed with cancer and gratefully was successfully treated, and so far is still cancer-free. But we were told this disease really negatively impacted older people, especially cancer survivors. The pandemic disease, of course. Every single day for about 2 weeks, policies changed and shifted at work, and in the government, the economy tumbled, and people were losing their jobs. This was stressful, but I had always managed stress well. I mean, I work as a fast food restaurant manager, but it was crazy. Then George Floyd was killed, and the protests and violence took over the nation, including Salt Lake City. I was terrified and panicked and exhausted, and I still am. The whole world was on edge, and some didn't handle the stress well. Some people screamed and yelled at fast food employees and retail workers. Some people shot fast food managers. In my own world, one man tried to lie in order to get free food from my restaurant. And when I confronted him and caught him in his lie, he grew angry. And months later, with COVID-19 cases rising, he returned to the restaurant in order to threaten me for calling him a liar. You better watch your back. Who knows what someone might do if you call them a liar, he had said. As we pursued the nearly empty shelves, As we perused the nearly empty shelves of our local grocery store, wearing masks, we hoped that we could find even what we needed, let alone what we wanted. And we considered ourselves lucky to find comfort food items. However, the store we were in had Meyer lemon trees on display, and I was touched inexplicably by this. I tell the story in more detail in Chapter 1 of the Lemonade Initiative, Year 1. But the idea came to me that I could possibly care for this tree and cultivate it and have my own lemons. I promptly started to blog about it at meandmylemontreeblogspot.com. This all culminated in a conversation I was having with a friend of mine, and I just grew tired of all the hate and the pain and the chaos I was seeing in the world. With him, we conceived of the Lemonade Initiative, where he encouraged me to follow my dream of writing and become a better writer, and changing my blog to be a place where I tell the stories of people who best embody the phrase, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. It started as a blog called Me and My Lemon Tree. At one point it was a podcast, very short-lived, and may become a podcast once again. Then transformed into the Lemonade Initiative. But in early 2021, we changed the spelling of lemonade to reflect better our mission and hope. So for now, and most likely for a long time, it will be the Lemonade Initiative. So I don't know what kind of impact my efforts have had. At the time of this reading, we averaged 395 subscribers to the blog, And my father and my father-in-law are my most faithful readers, and I appreciate both of them. But the work feels important to at least me. So I want to put the first year down in a book so that there is a record of it, where it came from, and then hopefully it can turn into something good. So please enjoy the Lemonade Initiative. I think I'll wrap up this video there, and I hope you enjoy my efforts. We'll see. I'm going to try my best to do regular updates in video form at least. I may reinitiate the podcast, and you can enjoy my previous efforts. If I do, most likely the podcast will just be audio of these videos. And yeah, that's me. I don't have a good sign off yet, so let's make one. Why don't you go out and make some lemonade? We'll see if that works.